Did Trump's tariffs just get canceled? Three judges are saying that the tariffs 10 to 145% were illegal. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's get into the stock market and everything that you guys need to know for today and even next week and the next coming days so you guys can make the most out of trading this week. Let's get started. So first off, man, we're going to talk about Nvidia's plans for a facility in China, but banks are basically bashing them and say it is a security issue, and also senators are as well. Best Buy sinks after it cuts guidance due to the tariffs. So honestly, look at Best Buy to the downside. We already have it down 10%, which is insane. Maybe you can get into it for a long term. GameStop buys Bitcoin worth $513 million, but the only issue is that people don't really know what price they bought it at. But look at GameStop to the upside and basically moving with crypto. But at the same time, if we look at other stocks like MSTR, Coinbase, they have billions worth of Bitcoin. So it's not really going to move like MSTR, but GameStop, they're making a turn. And they went up to 31 to 32. And this time it's not for memes. We see Elon Musk taking some time out of politics and now basically officially departing DC, and this time it is official and it is going to be June 12th. So Tesla stock is indeed rallying because of this, but today we've seen less volume than we've seen in the past couple of days, and people already kind of bought this news anyway in the previous, but this time it is official. And honestly, man, there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot more news for Tesla, so I do recommend looking at it. We're going to look at some supports and resistance and some plays that you guys can make. This is for the people that want to take their trading to the next level. I have a full course on how to trade options, option strategies, and how to read charts. Just literally everything that you guys need to know for option plays and for the overall stock market. Check it out if you guys want. Thank you. Now it is time to talk about what everybody's talking about, basically. So on May 29th, 2025, basically yesterday, but if you guys are watching this later on, it was the 29th, the U.S. Court of International Trade, three judges ruled Trump's massive global tariffs 10 to 145%, hitting China the hardest under the IEEPA, were illegal. Overstepping his authority, the court issued a permanent injunction blocking most tariffs imposed since January 2025. This sparked a market rally, but Trump's team appealed. The fight could lead plays a whole critical role in its narrative. Here's a breakdown. So when it takes effect, the injunction is effective immediately, but the administration has 10 days to comply with the new court orders. So basically they're saying that he wants Trump to revoke all of the tariffs. So basically no tariffs at all. Some tariffs may unwind quickly through enforcement details and unclear pending the appeal. Trump's retaliation. So basically Trump's team filed an immediate appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for Federal Circuit, likely heading to the Supreme Court. And with that news, basically this can take a while, even months, and honestly, maybe even years. So keep that in mind. But they are saying to cut the tariffs right away. So we're either going to have the tariffs cut and then the court happens, or we have tariffs still going and then court happens. So really that can determine where the markets is going. He can push for narrow tariffs or other trade measures. So basically saying like lower tariffs. So honestly, he can probably push for that 10% minimum. But his IEEPA authority is now limited, so blanket tariffs are tougher to pull off. Stock market impact, so we've seen boost in the SPY, Dow, literally everywhere. Even Apple went up. Apple went up to like 205 or something like that. We are falling a little bit now. Long-term uncertainty, the appeal could reinstate tariffs, causing volatility. If blocked permanently, markets could stabilize finally, but China's 125% retaliation tariffs remain a risk for tech and retail. Key factors: lower inflation pressure could lead to the Fed hold or cut rates, supporting stocks, but a stronger dollar and rising treasury yields, 4.34% right now, signal caution. And the dollar is getting stronger, so keep that in mind overall. So the markets are pumped for now, but the appeal and the US and China tensions keep things shaky. Watch tech, retail, and autos for gains, but brace for swings if tariffs return. We also had Asset say that judges' decision on tariffs will be overturned, and they're very confident in it getting overturned. So that did bring markets down a little bit more. And they also said Trump admin has different options on tariffs. So keep that in mind overall. So housing contract activity dropped sharply in April as volatility basically gets higher. Boeing CEO says he wants to crank up the 737 MAX production. So with that news, it did bring Boeing up a decent amount, even to that 210 and that 212, but we fell or we're falling now. So you might see the stock falling. Look at that 207, 206, 205, and all the way down to that 203 level. And 203, it should just balance out. But if you guys were in this play, you can make a bunch of money. And even now, you can make it to the downside. I don't recommend playing it directly to the downside, but if we pass VWAP, break below that 207 level, it might be clear that we're going back down. Boeing does have a lot of pops, and I do recommend when it's at around that 200 level to buy some long-term calls, because sometimes they be hitting. Like right here, it hit. I mean, right here, it hit again, and then the puts hit. And then, I mean, you just have big volatility, especially with news. There's just a bunch of news that comes out with Boeing. And honestly, this news did move some things. But let's talk about Nvidia's earnings. So they beat expectations by a decent amount. And basically, man, Nvidia's Q1 earnings, May 28th, revenue 44.1 billion, up 69% year over year. It beat 43.31 billion estimate. Data center was 39.1 billion, and it was a 73% year over year up. EPS non-GAAP 0.81 cents, missed the 0.85 due to the 4.5 billion H20 chip charge. So they did have a charge because they couldn't sell the H20 chips. The gross margin non-GAAP was 61% and 71.3% without the charge. Q2 guidance for 45 billion revenue plus 2%, below the 45.6 billion estimate due to the $8 billion China revenue loss. So they lost $8 billion in the Chinese revenue. So CEO Jensen Huang highlighted strong Blackwell and AI interference demand, agentic AI potential, and industrial AI growth. The China market shares dropped to 50% due to the restrictions, and I think it was at 80%. They have partnerships with Amazon, Cisco, Verizon, and healthcare firms. So key things that moved the stock was the Chinese restrictions, Blackwell demand, AI spending, and US and China trade deal. Bottom line, Nvidia beat revenue but missed EPS due to the China issues. Strong AI demand keeps stock bullish, but the $8 billion in Q2 China hit looms. Related stocks like Micron, Dell could gain from this, and honestly, it was pretty decent. But for the overall market right now, we're kind of mixed. We are kind of losing some of those gains that we got from that tariff news, but US futures got a boost after Donald Trump's tariffs were deemed illegal and blocking them for now. House Republicans' tax package is now expected to cost nearly $4 trillion, thanks to a last-minute deal to further increase the cap on state and local tax deductions. Musk said that his scheduled time as special government employee is coming to an end. And we kind of seen that news. Tesla's moving decently. The Trump admin has suspended some of the sales to China of critical US technologies, including those related to jet engines, semiconductors, and certain chemicals and machinery. The move is response to China's recent restrictions on export of critical materials and stuff like that. But keep in mind that he did just do a new ban for chips. So look at chips to the downside because of this. But Nvidia already took a hit because of chips, so you might not see Nvidia down. So we do have Japan's top trade negotiator going to Washington for a fourth round of talks. Despite the U.S. trade court ruling, he hopes to meet Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent before returning Sunday. South Korean's central bank cut its policy rate by 25 basis points as expected and slashed its 2025 growth outlook, signaling more easing to come. Bank of America also said total card spending was up 0.02%, April average plus 1%. Initial read suggests a softer Memorial Day spending weekend, likely due to colder weather. So what you guys are here for, some supports and resistance and some plays that you guys can make. So in the past, before tariffs, a lot of times when you see earnings, this is what I used to play, is once it goes up, sometimes it comes back down. Nvidia does have good numbers and stuff like that, and it's looking pretty good with sales, Blackwell. So honestly, I'm not going to say play to the downside or to the upside. I think 140 is a good price for Nvidia, but if trade talks and stuff like that, uncertainty comes in, maybe around that 135 level is a good trading level for Nvidia. That's when you shouldn't really play any plays unless you get news, basically. But with that being said, to the upside for Nvidia, look at that 142, 144, 145, and then all the way up to that 150 level if we start going up. But if we start selling off, we already seen a decent sell off, but we are coming back a little bit, back to like, you know, the after hours earnings. So honestly, to the downside, look at that 140. If we can break below that, we didn't really hold below that too long. We got to like 139.5. Look at that 139.5. We can break below that. 139, and then below that, look at 137.5, and then all the way down to that 135 level. If we could break below that 135 level, look at 130 as a next level for Nvidia. But honestly, man, the news for Nvidia is looking okay. The only bad thing is the Chinese news basically. But honestly, the earnings was decent. I mean, it beat honestly, and then we got some great numbers coming out from the USA and stuff like that. Apple, man, Apple lost all of its earnings, and Apple is probably the one that you want to watch the most when it comes to tariffs, just because of that 25% tariff hit. It got it down to like a normal range of 200. So at around that 200, if you do see it go back to the upside, look at that 202. If you can break above that, 204, 205, and then 207. If you can break above that 207, look at 208, because that was kind of the highs, but it didn't really hit it, and then 210 next. But honestly, I think we need tariff relief for Apple to do good. To the downside, man, that 200 level is going to be key. If we can break below that 200, look at 198.5, 196, and then 195, and then all the way down to that 190 for Apple. Next one is going to be Google, because Google, we lost all of their earnings. So before we get to Google, supports and resistance, we got Germany seeks to levy a 10% tax on online platforms like Google. So basically look at Google to the downside. But this is one thing people were talking about in the talks, basically, that could be a bad case scenario for good stocks like, Netflix, Google, YouTube, everything like that. Like memberships, anything that you buy, they can put a 10% tax on basically. And this can bring their profits down lower and even make them raise prices. So look at the stock Google for now, because Google is in the name. Germany can do this for anything, honestly, Netflix, stuff like that. Just keep a lot of things like membership, online based things, especially Amazon. They could do a lot, honestly. You got Prime, Google, they got like YouTube Premium and stuff like that, and just memberships in general and things that you can buy online. Things make it bad for the consumer and the business in general. But with that being said, man, to the downside for Google, look at 173, 172.5. That was a low for today. And then 171.5, and then all the way down to that 170 level. To the upside, 174.5, 175.5, and the highs of 177. But be patient with Google, because honestly, man, there's a lot of news. Next one is going to be Palantir. Nvidia didn't really help out Palantir at all, and we just been selling off consistently. Look at that 122.5, 120 flat. And honestly, man, Palantir overall is just looking a little bit more bearish. We need hype. We need a new deal. We need something that can help Palantir out. To the upside, look at 125, 126.5, and that 130 level. Palantir does move pretty fast though, and it's been moving around that 127.5 all the way down to that 120 level. So you can play some plays based on that. But I do recommend knowing everything about Palantir news and stuff like that, and why is it moving up and why is it moving down. Next one is going to be Tesla. We have been holding above that 350 level, which was kind of a key level. Didn't really break above it. And when it did, didn't stay above it too long. But now, since Elon Musk said that he's going to take some time and honestly quit now, is looking a little bit better. But with that being said, to the upside, look at 370, 375, and then 380. To the downside, look at 360, 355, and then at 350 level to the downside if we do start selling. But right now, it is looking pretty good. Amazon did sell off a decent amount because tariffs are going to be affecting Amazon too. I mean, that's literally all it is shipping things. And honestly, they're worldwide. But to the downside, look at that 206, 204.5, and then all the way down to that 200 level for Amazon. To the upside, look at that 208, 210, and then 212 level. And if we break above that, look at 215 next. Have your patience on Amazon. And if they're going to be putting taxes on memberships or something like that, Amazon can get affected too because they got Prime. But honestly, that is only if they do, Bitcoin isn't looking too good, man. The range that I've been watching this 106.5 level. It's been looking pretty decent. I've been personally trading IBIT option plays, and once it gets down to this level, especially today, it got down to that $60 flat. You could play a little call option, go into the upside, but honestly, just understand Bitcoin and what it does. People are saying it's a good safe haven, but at the same time, Bitcoin also rips when we get some good news too. So honestly, man, it's like 50-50. But with that being said, I do recommend checking out IBIT just because the contracts are very, very cheap and you're not really risking that much money. So honestly, this is one to look at. Next one is going to be MSTR. It moves exactly with Bitcoin, but the contracts are a little bit more expensive. So you're risking a little bit more money. You can lose a little bit more money, but at the same time, you can gain a little bit more money too. Coinbase isn't too bad neither, but it is also higher risk, higher reward. So keep that in mind. iBid is just decent. And honestly, you don't really lose that much money when it starts moving a certain direction. So keep that in mind overall for crypto in general. And yeah, next one is going to be Broadcom. I don't really talk about Broadcom too much, but it did kind of rally up, but then we lost like all of its gains back to, yesterday's close. So honestly, man, I think Broadcom can maybe rally up a little bit more. It is looking like it might rally, but just watch this level right now. If we can bounce above that, we might be able to maybe fill some gaps back up. And or if we fail break this, we might be able to go back down to the lows of 237.7. But have your patience with it in general. And overall for the market, man, we're looking okay. But honestly, just have your patience in general. Thanks for watching the video. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you guys are new. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.